You're listening to WOSD. I'm your host, Layla Palmer, and thank you for joining us for another installment of our podcast programming. We are delighted to have you join us in this three-part series, The Evolution of COMMBUYS, to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts e-procurement system. To celebrate the COMMBUYS anniversary, we will hear from a few past and present OSD employees who were instrumental in the success of the COMMBUYS launch in 2014. In Part 1, you will hear about the vision behind the COMMBUYS project and understand what users experienced during the launch of the platform. First, we'll hear from Gary Lambert, Assistant Secretary for Operational Services at OSD, who explains the initial vision for the project.
Back in around 1996, 1997, the Commonwealth and OSD was looking at the internet, which had just sort of shown up on scene, and started to wonder what we could do in the procurement space to take advantage of the internet and the ubiquitousness of it as it was being promoted at the time. And we got the idea to do what we called the multi-state e-mall, which was really a catalog ordering idea using the internet and using existing state contracts as the foundation for those catalogs. And we wound up getting 5 other states to join in with us to develop a pilot doing just that. We then started to think about how could we use the internet to actually publish solicitations. And then we created, shortly after the pilot, a solution called COMMBUYS, Commonwealth Procurement Access and Solicitation System. And really what it was a bid board. Here are a bunch of solicitations that we've developed in Microsoft Word, and you can now see them here and download them and use them as the basis for responding to our request, but you still were going to mail in the final documents signed and all of that. That was in place for a long time. And then you fast forward to 2011, and I came into this job as the Assistant Secretary with a goal of actually putting in place an end-to-end e-procurement solution. And by that, back then, that meant everything from developing the solicitation to awarding the contract, to signing the contract, to interfacing to the state finance system, to generate the payments without paper. That was the vision. That was the goal.
Next, Elaine McGrath, the COMMBUYS project director, will share insights on the launch of COMMBUYS and the team she worked with along the way.
Gary Lambert, who is still your leader, he was responsible for the original implementation of our procurement system, an old system called COMMBUYS. And he had this vision. So we basically had great procurement staff, and we had an old system. I believe COMMBUYS was at least 20 years old at that point, and it wasn't interactive. It wasn't like an Amazon experience, which was Gary's vision. So I was the project director. So I had a lot of experience implementing on various levels. I started as a programmer many, many, many years ago and kind of worked my way through the ranks. I certainly have always had inspirational leaders like Gary along the way. I was responsible for everything that a project director is responsible for: the money, the timing, the issues, the implementation, the testing, all the normal stuff. It was challenging because we were under a lot of time constraints. We got that thing up and running and on time and under budget, which is pretty unusual for state government. So we had over 40 people. We kept the help desk and sourcing really involved from start to finish, which was wonderful. They were a key part of making sure that they understood what was going on so they could help our customers. We had something that I had never heard about until Gary Lambert, which was change management, which I always thought of that as training, but it's a whole heck of a lot more than training. It's just kind of winning the hearts and minds of people. And we had a wonderful change manager named Jeanette Graebner, and she just was marvelous. She included everybody. I don't think she had a bad word to say about anything. She was fun. And of course, my peer was Chris Kennedy, who was a senior VP at Periscope. But those are the people that I dealt with. There was, like I said, over 40 people. I could name them all to this day, but there were many, many people testers, there were implementers, there were converters, there were help desks, there were trainers, a lot of software people. There were a lot of people. There were a lot of moving parts, but I had a really great team around me. So I learned a lot about the importance of team. I learned a lot about being everybody's cheerleader and having a cheerleader. So all good comes from good.
Next, Christine Swistro will discuss her role in the COMMBUYS project.
I supported all of the sort of communications and user readiness activities. So working with the people that were actually directly in contact with the developers customizing COMMBUYS, partnering with them, we looked at how our features of COMMBUYS going to be implemented, what would be our kind of launch package. And then we took the entirety of the Commonwealth and looked at all the people that do purchasing and developed a liaison network. So my focus was really employee readiness to use the COMMBUYS system successfully. But I think that the focus and investment in communication and user readiness, in addition to all the technical work and testing that was going on, was a really important piece of COMMBUYS success. It was really a novel system to use, a cloud-based system for purchasing, to not be building something from scratch where every single idiosyncrasy of different purchasing practices gets built into the code. This was configured and not built from scratch. It was a huge innovation and a much more economical way to run a purchasing system. And so it was a great innovation, and we wanted it to be successful. And so I think that first launch was really, in my mind, where we put the Commonwealth on a new footing.
Lastly, Chuck Puckmell will discuss his role on the project and share a few of his proudest moments during this period.
My name is Chuck Puckmell, and I was the Tier 3 Functional Support Lead on the COMMBUYS project at OSD. I assisted statewide contract vendors with registration, enablement, and support for the launch, and I worked with OSD strategic sourcing managers on contract and catalog enablement activities to establish the statewide contracts on COMMBUYS. And I also worked with the functional team on application, configuration, testing, agency support, training efforts, and a whole bunch of other things to make sure we were successful in the launch. I worked with the project team, the COMMBUYS help desk, the sourcing team, the training team, and everyone at OSD on a daily basis, just trying to provide assistance and functional support in any way that I could. I was pretty proud watching the first statewide contracts go live with purchasable catalogs for those contracts that I helped enable. And then watching purchasers throughout the state use those catalogs on a daily basis. It was great to see. Events that made me proud to be a team member were when I posted my first bid solicitation to assist on a letter project at OSD, recalling all the hard work from the team members to make that happen. And then as a director of procurement and contracts at a state agency a couple years later, watching the solution in daily use as we put RFPs for our biggest state programs in place. Those were just great, proud moments. I was super happy and proud to have worked with the OSD team. Congratulations on the anniversary.
This concludes part 1 of the Evolution of COMMBUYS. Thank you to Gary Lambert, Elaine McGrath, Christine Swistro, and Chuck Puckmell for providing their thoughts with the agency. Next, in part 2 of the Evolution of COMMBUYS, you will hear about the system's impact on organizations across the state of Massachusetts. OSD looks forward to engaging with you on our social media and YouTube channels. Links to those are in the description box. To suggest ideas for future podcasts, email the team at osdoutreach@mass.gov. This podcast was produced, audio engineered, and edited by me, Layla Palmer. Thank you for joining us.